Well, hey everybody, I'm Nathaniel Dodson from tutvid.com. Welcome right into this Premiere Pro tutorial where today we're going to take a look at 17 absolutely killer must-know tricks and tips and even, I guess you could say, hacks in Premiere Pro that are going to help you edit faster and just some cool things you can do with Adobe Premiere Pro. Now, and I got to break out the big guns for this. This video is being brought to us by our sponsor, Squarespace. They're my good friends over there at squarespace.com, and if you're in the market for a new website, go to squarespace.com/tutvid. Use the coupon code tutvid to get a nice little discount. Go ahead and show them some support for showing us some support. They're helping me bring you all these tutorials and videos for absolutely free here on the channel. They really do help us out, and I love them very much for that. So if you're thinking about getting a domain, a website, setting up an online store, getting your portfolio online finally, head over to squarespace.com/tutvid, check them out, and show them some love. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump into this video right now and get this thing started. All right, so here we are in Adobe Premiere Pro, and the first tip or trick that I want to show you, number one, is just creating a simple text title. So this is what you want to do. Come down here and hit New, choose to create a new color matte. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to fill this color matte with white. That's going to essentially give me a white screen. We can just call it white or whatever you like. I'm going to drag it out onto my timeline above my video, stretch it out a little bit, maybe something like that. And then I can simply grab the text tool or the type tool, and I can click out here, and I can say the title of my film, something like that. And what we would do is over here in the effect controls, you now get all of this information, but I find it's easier to go window and choose the essential graphics panel to edit your text. I like to do that, and you can choose edit, and you can see the title of my film. The problem is the fill is white. We want this to be black because we've just created our white frame. There we go. You can choose any font you like. I think I'm going to go with Montserrat here, and I will go with a bold, something like that. And we can align this to the center. So this is just centering the text up within the text area. This doesn't actually center it on the frame. Then you can use your align tools here to just align horizontally and vertically, and boom, you have some nice, simple black text over a white background. You can stretch that text out, and you've created a nice little title sequence here, just like that. It's very, very simple to create something like that here in Premiere Pro. I'm going to delete that. So the second thing I want to talk about is using your up or down arrow keys. Let's say my playhead is out here and I want to quickly get to either the first or last frame of this time-lapse clip. Well, if I hit the down arrow key, it takes me to the end, which you can see is actually the beginning of this next cars driving in Cuba clip. But if I hit the up arrow key, it takes me back to the beginning of that clip. Now, one quick thing that I do need to point out, this only works when you have tracks targeted. So if you have multiple like graphics stacked up, let's say I drag out this white matte here and maybe the white matte here. Say if I hit the down arrow key, it's totally ignoring all those white mattes. It's only focusing on the video clips. Why? Because of this right here. I've only targeted this track. If I target both of these tracks, now I hit the down arrow key, it's going to take me to the beginning of the white matte, then the beginning of the next white matte, then the end of that second white matte, then the end of this video here, and then down again, it's going to take me to the end of that white matte. And by the way, if I zoom out, I can keep hitting the down arrow key and jump to the end of all these different clips. Up arrow key to just back it up and shut off targeting if I don't want to target clips or be disturbed or distracted by cuts on other tracks here in our Premiere Pro project. So let's talk about tip number 3. You can select and loop any little part of your timeline that you like. Let's say we're working on a little transition here between the end of this Cuban car clip and the beginning of the piranhas. So the transition would begin maybe at 40 seconds. So let's hit the letter I to set an in point, and the transition maybe ends at 42 seconds. So it's about 2 seconds long, roughly. We hit the letter O to set an out point. This kind of like grabs a selection of the timeline, so to speak. But we can tell Premiere to just loop within this in-out area and ignore everything else because maybe we want to get an idea of what this really looks like and be able to just look at it a few times without having to scrub back and forth. Well, what you're going to want to do is add the loop button. So come over here to the button editor, press the plus icon, and just drag this loop button. Drag it and drop it down here with the rest of our buttons. Hit OK. And make sure we turn that on. And then just simply hit the space bar, and you can see it's going to play through, and it's going to loop, and it's going to do that over and over and over again. I can just hit spacebar to stop that, and then Alt or Option and the letter X to clear my in or out points, and that is a really, really cool little trick to loop a specific part of your video in Premiere Pro. Now, speaking of maybe we're working on a transition and we just want to quickly view, there's another way you can do this that doesn't necessarily involve in or out points, and that is called the play around feature. You can get the play around feature by simply hitting Shift and the letter K. And what this is going to do is it's going to back the playhead up a few seconds and play that video, and then play just a couple seconds past and just continuously loop that. And of course, for us, it's continually looping because we still have our loop option turned on. We could shut that off if you only want to see it once. But this is a really nice little feature. If you're working on something and you just kind of scrub through the transition, you're like, you know what, let me just see that again. Shift K to play that. Now, there's another little cool thing about this, and that is you can go up to Premiere Preferences. and come down here to the playback option. And in here, you can set the pre and post roll times. So maybe we only really want to see 1 second before wherever the playhead is and 1 second after it. So we can set pre and post roll to 1 second, hit OK. And now when we hit Shift K, it's only going to back the playhead up 1 second and play 1 second past. So you can see it's just going to show us a much smaller preview area. So that can be kind of cool to go into there and make that little change and just set that up exactly with the timing that you prefer. Let's take a quick break here because this is a sponsored video. I want to make sure I dab up our friends over at Squarespace one more time here, and I've got some notes. Squarespace.com has chosen to sponsor this video, and for that I love them very much. I also love their service, by the way. You'll see here in a moment. They have a system that allows you to easily build the most beautiful and easy-to-use websites in the world. I should emphasize that, in the world. Very easy. If you want a portfolio, a blog, a full-fledged e-commerce store, or really anything, you can do it quickly and easily with Squarespace. I built my own personal photography website with Squarespace several years ago. I've been able to update it. It's such a breeze. It's so easy to go in there and tweak and adjust things when you need to. So again, go to squarespace.com/tutvid for a free trial. No credit card needed. That's a plus. And when you're ready to launch your website, use the coupon code TUTVID, that's TUTVID, to save 10% off your first website. Check them out. Show them some love. They really help us out, and we appreciate you, Squarespace, so much. Thank you. And with that out of the way, let's jump back into this video. So another really cool thing you can do is preview your video as a full screen. Now, many of you may already know that you can simply hover over any one of your panels here and hit the tilde key, and it's going to maximize that panel. So if I hover over my timeline, as you can see, maximizes that. If I hover over my video monitor, it maximizes that. But what if we actually want it to be true blue full screen? Well, check this out. We can come up here to our keyboard shortcut editor, and we can search down here in the search field right here. We can search for the toggle full, and we get the application toggle full screen option. And I just set this to be control and the tilde key. You can really set it to anything you want. It just feels natural to me being there, but you can really set it to anything you want. So at this point, I could just hit control tilde, and I get full screen video, hit the spacebar to preview and play, and then simply hit the escape key to get out of it. It's a nice little way to quickly be able to preview your videos in Premiere Pro. Tip number 6, another thing I like to do is change the hotkey for my Add Edit feature to the letter Z. This Add Edit basically will cut the video at whatever point you've placed the playhead. So I hit the letter Z, boom, you can see my video is now cut. It's just a nice, easy alternative to having to come over here and grab the razor tool for every single cut you make. So once more, if we go into our keyboard shortcut editor and we search for the Add Edit function, you can just go ahead and set the shortcut to something that works for you. I changed Add Edit to Z because I also like to change my ripple delete to the letter X. You can see it's X or Shift and the forward delete button, but just the letter X. That way, if I'm making some cuts, what I can do is say, yeah, make a cut there, and this sort of junk part is already selected, so then I just hit the letter X, which is right next to Z, boom, it's gone, just like that. It's just a nice, easy little workflow that I really, really like. Now, let's say we're going to use that hotkey and just create a bunch of cuts here in this video, just something kind of like that, and we want to select these cuts. You can do this by holding down the Command or Control key and dragging a selection over these cuts. You can see how just the cuts themselves are selected. Now here, this is pretty cool. Have you ever cut a clip and wanted to join it back together? Well, if you just select the cut like this, you can simply hit the Delete key and boom, it's back to one normal clip again. No need to nest all those clips together. I'm going to undo that and I'm going to hold down Command or Control and select all those cuts again. Something else we can do is add a default transition by hitting Command or Control D. You can see we've automatically added a cross dissolve to all of these cuts. Now, it's not really going to look like anything because it's just the normal video going through its paces. And by the way, over here in Effects, under Video Transitions, under Dissolve, you see that little blue square? That means the cross dissolve is my default transition. If you don't like that and you want something else as a default transition, right-click on something else and choose Set Selected as Default Transition. A nice little thing to know. All right, let's move on to number 8. I'm going to grab these cuts. I'm going to get rid of them to join that together. Speaking of a bunch of multiple transitions, this can be helpful if you have an interview or something that's narrated where you have multiple cuts in the audio. So I'm going to lock up my video here for a second. I'm going to unmute my audio, and let's use Add Edit to make just a bunch of cuts here to our audio. So let's say these were all just like little bits and pieces of some interview that we were working with. Well, what we could do is we could select just the cuts by holding down Command or Control, select all those cuts, and then hit Shift-D to apply our default audio transition. Now, if I zoom way in, I'm going to see I've applied these tiny little constant power crossfade audio transitions. Now, how am I getting that? And why is this important? Number one, over here under audio, transitions, under crossfade, constant power has that little blue square. That lets me know, yep, that's my default audio transition, and Shift D is going to place my default audio transition. Now, why is it so small? Yours is probably a little bit bigger, and why is this important? Well, let me answer the why is this important first. Sometimes when you're working with narration or voiceover or an interview, if there's some kind of ambient noise going on in the background at all, sometimes you get a little pop or a noticeable something happening when you go from clip to clip as the video and audio plays through. And adding just a very, very quick crossfade can just make everything smoothly flow one clip right into the next, and this is a fast way to add that transition. Now, why is the transition so small? Easy. Up here under the Premiere Pro Preferences menu, we can come down here to the Timeline option right there, Timeline, and we can choose Audio Transition Default Duration. And I right now have it set to 2 frames, and that's really all you need. It just needs to be something tiny. If you want it to be bigger, you can go 30 frames or something like that. I can hit OK. Now I can undo to get rid of all of my little transitions. And now if I select these transitions and hit Shift D, you can see I have a much larger constant power crossfade. The problem with something big is you're going to end up fading their voice in and out, and that's going to sound just as bad. You want it to be something that just happens pretty much instantaneously and just gets rid of any kind of little popping or just sound discrepancies, I should say, that don't sound good. And of course, with all of these cuts selected, I can hit the delete key to delete them and rejoin my audio clip as it was. I'm going to unlock my video track, and we're going to move on to tip number 9 here, and that is going to be, well, let me find my videos here in my bin. That is going to be replacing a clip in your timeline. So I could take this video shot here, I could drag it out, hold down my Alt or Option key, and drop it on the clip, and you can see that old clip just simply gets straight up replaced by this new clip. Maybe I don't like that, I want to go back to the old clip. There's that little time lapse, I can drag that and drop it while I'm holding the Alt key, and boom, the clip is just replaced. Easy peasy, just like that. Now, tip number 10, and this is going to embark upon a number of little trimming features, and these are going to be something maybe you should write them down or just make a note of them because they're super duper useful. They're so helpful, especially when you're fine-tune editing something, but they can be difficult to remember, especially if you're not using them every day. We can select a side of a transition. You can see that when that red arrow appears, I can click on it, and you can see how it's selecting like the side here on the time lapse. And if I wait until the red arrow flips, now it's sort of selecting the cube and car side. Right, well, I'm going to select this side. I can simply hold down my Alt or Option key and use the right arrow and just cut the clip back 1 frame at a time. If I hold down my Shift key while holding down Alt, I can bounce it back 5 frames at a time. So that's kind of a nice little feature, and if I don't like that, I can just drag it back out to the way it was. But that's a really nice little trimming feature. You can also do it to the front of a clip, hold down Alt or Option, tap the right arrow key, hold Shift while doing that, and tap that right arrow key, and you can nudge it a whole bunch, just like that. It can be a really helpful way to precisely edit and trim up your clips within a project. Now, check this out. Let's say we make a cut here in the middle of our video. We cut out a chunk like this, and I'm going to go over to my effects. In my presets, I have a little, I got a black and white option here, just a black and white preset. I'm going to drop on the video right here. So you can see it's going to make this part of our video black and white, whereas the 2 pieces around it are still in color. I'm going to mute the audio as well, because that's kind of annoying hearing it just kind of peter through like that. But let's say we send this off to the client, and they say, ooh, we really like that quick cut to black and white, but we kind of want it to be a few seconds earlier. So then you would have to come in here, you'd have to get rid of whatever effects you've placed, you would have to, delete those cuts, but you don't really have to do any of that because you can hold down Command or Control, select both those cuts, and then hold down your Alt or Option key and move the entire clip within context. The beautiful thing about this is it's not stretching the video at all. You can see the video is just exactly the way it would have been, just with basically the black and white filter moved. It's not actually taking and knocking everything out of place. It's just sort of sliding that black and white effect over as well as those cuts in the video to make it super fast and super easy to make those kind of edits to any of your clips. I'm going to go ahead, hold down Command or Control, select both of those cuts, delete them, and you can see the black and white just goes away, no problemo. And let's move down. Let's make this interesting. We've been working with this time-lapse clip. Let's go ahead and come to this girl riding a vintage bike shot. And let's say here, the client's looking at it, and they say, you know what, I want to cut away some of this stuff at the beginning of the clip. So we want this clip to begin right here when the pedal is straight up and down. So right there is where we want it to begin. Basically, we need to trim the entire head of this clip off. Well, you can do that by, number 1, making sure that your clip is targeted, or your track is targeted, I should say, and then simply hold down Alt or Option and hit the letter Q. Now you can see this also trimmed away all of this audio, so I'm going to undo that. Let's just lock up our audio and try that again. Alt or Option and the letter Q, boom, the video is gone, and it trims it exactly to the playhead. Now, what if this is where they wanted the video to end and we need to trim the tail off this clip? Well, you could hold down Alt-Option and tap the letter W, and the entire tail of the clip gets cut off. And it makes a lot of sense. If you look at your keyboard, Q, well, that's the left side, and this is the left side of the playhead, and W is on the right side on your keyboard, and this is the right side of the playhead that's getting trimmed. One of the nice things about this particular trim is it's not going to disturb the timing of the rest of your video, right? None of the video ripple deleted or moved around it. But if you do want to ripple delete, well, that's no problem. Just get rid of the Alt or Option key. Hit the letter Q to ripple delete the head of the clip off. Boom. And now the clip just begins right here. I'll undo that. Or if you want to ripple delete the tail of the clip, hit the letter W. Boom. Just like that. Super duper easy, and it's just such a really nice editing trimming technique. It's so stinking fast, and the more you do it, the more you'll love it, and the faster you're going to get at editing here in Premiere Pro. All right, now for tip number 13, I want to talk about removing and pasting attributes. Let's say, again, we've made this whole clip black and white, right? And the client they love this look. They're like, this is it. We want the whole video to look like this. Well, of course, we could just select all the clips and drag this visual effect out and drop it on all of them, but we could also copy and paste attributes from one clip to another. I can just make sure I have this clip selected here, and I can go edit, I can choose copy, just like that, nice and simple, and then I can come over here to any other clip, maybe the classic cars, right? And I can choose edit, paste attributes, and you can see it's going to tell me, hey, which attributes would you like to paste? Well, I don't really care about the motion opacity or time remapping, but I also know that I didn't make any changes to those, so I'm just going to leave them there. The main thing I'm interested in is the Lumetri color effect. Now, the cool thing about this is, let's say you have 20 different effects on a clip. Number one, you probably shouldn't have 20 different effects on a single clip, but hypothetically, if you had 20 effects on a single clip, you could just pick the ones you wanted and send those over. When I hit OK, you're going to see the black and white effect gets copied over to this clip. It's really cool. It's really pretty easy. But now if you decide you don't like it, again, you could always right-click here and just choose to clear this effect. But again, hypothetically, if there's 20 of these effects applied, right? Like maybe we've gone ahead and applied this VHS effect. And you can look at all this stuff, right? Are you going to go through and select all that stuff and get rid of it? Well, probably not. You can simply go edit, and you would choose remove attributes. It's grayed out. We want to make sure we select the clip over here in our timeline. And then we'll go edit, remove attributes. And here, we don't need to get rid of the motion opacity or time remapping stuff. We just want to get rid of, all this stuff here, all these stupid effects. Hit OK. They should all be checked, and boom. Just like that, they're all gone. Really, really fast, really easy. And we can do the same thing here with this. We can go edit, remove attributes, and just say, yep, get rid of the Lumetri color. We can leave the other stuff checked on too because we haven't made any changes to it. And now the clip is back to the way it was when we first dragged it in. Alrighty, moving right along to tip number 14. Let's talk about adding some motion blur. So I'm going to add some type here. I'm going to type in Havana. I hope I'm spelling that correctly. Havana, Cuba. And I am going to, we'll just leave this as Montserrat, I think. We will make this a little bit larger, maybe something like that. Let's align this center within the text. Center align the text, I guess I should be saying. And let's go back to Essential Graphics real quick and choose Edit. And I'm going to change the fill here to white. I could do that in my Effect Controls panel, but I'm mainly interested in my Align and Transform options here. I want to just line that up with the very middle. And I think I'm okay with that. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to perform just a very quick and dirty scale from very small to much larger. Now we could animate the scale option here, which is sort of your default video effects, but we can get a better effect if we go to the effects panel, close my presets here, and I search for an effect called Transform. Down here, Video Effects, Distort, Transform. I'm going to drop that here on the text, and we have a scaling option here. Why do I want to use this, you ask? Well, let me show you. We're going to tick on animation here by hitting the stopwatch, dropping a keyframe. We're going to set scaling to 0, and then I'll move out just a little bit, like right here, and we'll set the scale back to 100%. At this point, you can see we have a little bit of just kind of a zoom from nothing, boom, right up to much larger text. It looks kind of staticky. There's just not much going on there. What I think I'll do, let's make it a little bit faster. Let's push that keyframe back a little bit. And you can see there's our text animating up from nothing, just like that. There's no motion blur, though. So here's the trick. Down here in the Transform effect, you have this Use Compositions Shutter Angle. As you can see, we can uncheck that and choose our own shutter angle. I like to go with 360 degrees for my shutter angle, and I'm just going to drag this back so I can see my keyframes. I'm going to zoom in here on this timeline by hitting the plus icon. I'm going to make my animation happen in even less time, so it's going to happen even faster. And you can see, look at that. We have this nice blurring effect now applied to our animation. We get a really cool, just text that appears from nothing, zooms up into the screen, just like so, and the motion blur is made possible by the Transform effect. Now, speaking of this effect, This brings me to tip number 15, getting better, crisper, more professional looking animations. I'm going to select this animation timeline and hit my plus key to zoom in a little bit more. Let's say we want to give this a little bit of bounce, right? We want to make this look a little smoother, maybe a little bit more like it was made in After Effects. Well, we can select both these keyframes by dragging a selection over them. We can right click, and maybe we'll just go with something simple like an auto Bezier, which is going to give it a little bit of easing in, and kind of make it just bounce into place, make it look a little more professional. But we can also hit this little arrow over here to the left of the scale option, and we have these custom easing options, which I can zoom in on. And again, the key here is going to be make sure you have your keyframes selected. They're blue, they're selected, they're gray, they're not selected. Drag out a selection over them and make sure they're selected. I'm going to drag this tangent handle over, and then I'm going to drag this tangent handle up. And what this is going to tell the animation is animate right here. Remember, this point is a scale of 100%. This point is a scale of 0%. So we're going to tell this, look, scale up, get bigger than 100%, and then snap back into place at 100%. And this is going to give us kind of a cool, almost whiplash effect with this effect. So you can see just very quickly and easily we added this really neat little snap to our title. Maybe not the most professional thing in the world, but hey, you now know how to go in and use these tools to use your own personal aesthetic and skill to maybe get a more professional looking animation by using the custom easing and, in this case, scaling options for easing here in Premiere Pro. All right, tip number 16. This tip is relatively simple but kind of important. Don't sleep on the adjustment layers. So we can come over here to our project bin. In fact, I'm going to find my actual sub bin right here, and we can hit the new icon down here and choose to create an adjustment layer. And it's going to give us all these settings and everything great, and then I can drag this adjustment layer out over a few clips. The beauty of the adjustment layer is you can apply effects to the adjustment layer, and they will affect any clips that just happen to be beneath that adjustment layer. So we could look at these videos, these few clips, and maybe we want to give them a special, like, deep blue color treatment or something. We could go to effects, we could go to video effects, we could say color correction, and maybe I'll just, I don't know, we'll give it something like a tint. Let's just do a simple tint with the adjustment layer. I'm going to map the black to maybe like a deep dark, let's actually go a deep dark blue, something like that, very, very saturated, hit OK, and we'll map the white to something like a very kind of beigey looking yellow color, something like that. And then we can, increase or reduce the amount to tint, maybe something like 55%. That looks cool. So you can see if we shut the adjustment layer off, I can just toggle it by hitting the eyeball. There it is before, there it is after. So we've changed this clip, but we've also changed this clip. See if I shut that off, there's before, there's after. And then if we come over here to our sunrise, there's before, and there is after. So we've applied the same exact effect across a series of clips, but we didn't have to worry about adjusting these clips. And if we decide, you know what, let's see what this looks like with the piranhas, we can just drag that adjustment layer out, and now we've applied it over part of the piranha clip. So here's the piranha clip without the adjustment, and here's the piranha clip with the adjustment. So adjustment layers can be a really, really powerful tool. They're a whole lot of fun to use. They're very versatile and very, very useful here in Premiere Pro. All right, so we're going to head into the 17th and final tip. We've come so far. We've come so far. Don't leave me now. And this tip is going to be all about exporting using the Adobe Media Encoder. Part of the cool thing about Adobe Media Encoder, this app right here, is you can come over to the queue and you can choose to add a source. And we can navigate to a Premiere project. Now, maybe I want to jump back into Premiere Pro. Just make sure I've saved my project and probably unmuted the audio track as well. But in order to do that, we need to unlock it. So now I could unmute the audio track. And while we're in here, it gets me every time. We'll just trim the audio track off. I always do a little bit too much. All right, let's get back to the task at hand. Adobe Media Encoder. We could double-click our Premiere project. Did I save it? Command or Control-S to save it. That's what I initially went over there for. All right, we can select our Premiere project, double-click on it, and Dynamic Link is going to access this Premiere sequence here. Nice and easy. I can choose the 17 tips folder. There's that working sequence, which we're working in. See, the name of the sequence is working. So it's going to select all this video we have in here. I can select that working sequence, hit OK. It's going to load it up here for export. I can choose a preset if you've got a preset or one of Premiere Pro's many presets. Choose whatever you like. You can choose to output the file wherever you want it to be. I'm just outputting this guy to my desktop, and then hit the play button, and that will start the queue and render out. Now, the importance of this is you can render out a file and then jump back into Premiere Pro and continue editing and not worry about Premiere Pro being all bogged down and throttled by Adobe Media Encoder. Get back to work in Premiere Pro editing while that exports in the background. It's nice and easy and helpful. And that is the final 17th of 17 tips for editing faster, tips, tricks, hacks, you name it, in Premiere Pro. And yes, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is 17 power tips, tricks, hacks, whatever you want to call them in Adobe Premiere Pro. If you enjoyed this tutorial, make sure you subscribe to my channel by hitting that little subscribe button down there. Turn those notifications on. You'll never miss another Premiere Pro tutorial in the future. You can also jump into our Discord, discord.me/tutvid, and join our little community that we're building over there as well. So for all of these cool trimming features and creating a quick title sequence and, hey, adjustment layers and just everything that we covered here and now, today, right here in this Premiere Pro tutorial. Guys, that's it. Get it, got it, good. Nathaniel Dodson, tutvid.com. I'll catch you in the next one. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to my channel for more great tutorials every day. Also, buy my course. It helps us do what we do, and this channel is supported by viewers just like you. You can also just click the thumbnail and watch another video from this channel. See you next time, guys.